We have a fabulous guest and friend today, Kim Williams, who's the VP, I'm going to say Vice President, and General Manager of Canadian Operations for Ovintiv, formerly Encana, which is an energy company. And we're so excited to have her. Welcome, Kim.
Yay, Kim.
Hey guys, it's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, we don't mince words, Kim. You know how we roll sometimes. So we're just going to get right into it. Are you ready?
Yeah, let the grilling begin.
All right, let the grilling begin. Well, the good news is it's going to be a super simple grilling. So here's what we'd love to start out with. Tell us about, you've worked at Ovintiv for a while, so tell us a little bit about Ovintiv, what you do there, and how you got there. How did you get into the work that you do?
Oh, that's great. Okay, so yeah, I've been at Ovintiv for a long time. I kind of have one of those stories where it's not usual. I've been at a company my entire career. And so I started way back when, gosh, I sound old. Way back when I was a summer student in college. I started with Pan-Canadian at the time, Pan-Canadian Petroleum. And so I worked as a student for Pan-Canadian for a few summers. And before I went back to my final year at the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, shout out Huskies, there was a formal job offer made to start full time with the company after I got my degree. And so I graduated basically in 2000. And so I started work about 4 days later. I caught a bus from Saskatoon to Brooks, Alberta, and fell off the bus in Brooks, Alberta, and used the last 25 cents in my pocket to call my boss and said, I'm here. And he luckily picked me up and let me sleep on his floor until I could get my first paycheck and find a place to live and all that good stuff. So yeah, about 26 years now that I've been with the company.
That is incredible. Yes. And I'm not going to, not for nothing, I think you dated yourself with the 25 cents in your pocket to make a phone call.
That's right. Actually, a phone call, not a cell phone, nothing.
Payphone.
Yes.
Payphone.
Oh,
exactly. Well, tell us about Ovintiv. Give us a little kind of summary of kind of work that you all do there and your value and importance. We already know it. Our listeners don't.
So I think it's a really cool story. Actually, Ovintiv is one of Canada's oldest energy companies. And so we're now an American company, but back in our history, we were one of the first oil and gas companies, and actually threads back to the late 1800s when the railway was being pushed across Canada, and the railway would have to drill for water along the track to ensure they could have water for the locomotives and for the workers. And they were drilling for water near Medicine Hat and actually ended up finding gas instead of water. And I always joke around. I used to be the vice president of EH&S at the company. I always joke around. It was our first safety incident. We burned the rig down and someone jumped off the rig and broke his leg. And so, it was way back when that was kind of how things worked. And so, yeah, that was the start of it. So it ended up turning into Canadian Pacific Oil and Gas, which ended up turning into Pan-Canadian, which ended up merging with other companies over the years, became Encana. We split in 2007 or 8-ish into two companies, an oil side and a gas side, and Encana kept the gas side name. And then we became Ovintiv in 2020 during the pandemic. We did a complete rebrand at like the worst time ever. So a lot of people don't know us yet as Ovintiv, but are starting to get it. Yeah, just a long history really of oil and gas development in Canada, in everything from southern Alberta to northeastern British Columbia. And, right across the country, we used to have some offshore assets in Nova Scotia. And so we've got a lot of assets in the US as well. But yeah, I look after our Canadian operations here. So kind of like the country manager almost for Canada.
I love that. It's a big job, Kim. I love that so much. So in thinking about, because energy definitely feels this as far as industries go, in thinking about the work that we do, and because we've worked with you in the Canadian team, where we talk about thriving in uncertainty. Can you give us an example of how that shows up for you in your work? Maybe it's a single example of where you had to thrive in uncertainty, whether that was getting other people motivated to solve a problem or even just yourself. Can you give us a little story or kind of the first thing that pops into your head when it comes to that?
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty common to a lot of folks you talk to in Canada. It's just a really tough environment sometimes here in Canada. we're a bit of a creation of our own making here, where we don't have a lot of export capability for our products on the oil and gas side of things. And the US is one of our major customers, of course. Um, so it's really been probably the last decade and a half has been a pretty tough pull to be in the oil and gas industry. And, prices have been really challenged here in Canada. And like just that lack of ability to get our product to Tidewater has been some of the difficulty. And so really helping people see that as not just a challenge, but an opportunity. And we always say like challenge-tunity, but like how do you reframe things and find a way to exist in this space? And so then it became, it really becomes a leadership challenge. How do you help people realize that there's a space that we can not just like survive in here in the hard times, but we can find ways to thrive? And how can we, we like to say like, how can we be the best at it? But where can we find that little niche to carve out for ourselves? And I think, I look at our team and we've really taken that approach of, well, gosh, if we can't access those broader markets, then let's just be absolutely tremendous at what we do on a day-to-day basis. And you turn into this like fine, well-oiled machine of how you operate in that uncertainty. And you have process to manage things, and you have to mix that with fun, and your leadership really needs to grow and change depending on what the needs are. But at the end of the day, if you can find that little niche for your team to fit into, there's a lot of motivation there for the team to do amazing things. And I think that's where we live.
Love that.
That's great. Thank you, Kim. I'm curious to know what you would say are the skills that these leaders need. What are you looking for? What do you see as the evolution of these skills? I mean, if I think back to oil and gas, I've spent many years, on the ground at places like DCP Midstream, primarily in the midstream space, but we worked with a lot of oil and gas companies. And I would say in the early 2000s, maybe you agree with this, when you joined, it was still kind of a command and control atmosphere. You do what I tell you to do, and that's what we do. What's the evolution been? What skills are you looking for now that are maybe different from what you used to?
Oh yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really changed from that command and control, top-down decision making to, I call it the choose your own adventure a little bit play. So you want everyone to come to the table with their ideas. And the way that I'm seeing that manifest now is like in the concept of a network team. So I have a team structure. It's pretty clear who reports to who, but every day, we'll sit in a room with our network team and talk about the priorities that we've got for the next, 3-4 weeks, and be running through those. And it's not any of the leaders that are running that. It is this joint group of folks from across the organization who are in there as informal leaders running the business. And so, it's always a bit of a moment, because when something really big is happening, everyone looks to you in the room and is like, well, what's Kim going to say? What's Kim going to say? And I'm always like, no, you guys have got this. Like, you guys are running the business. This is how a network team works. And I fully support that mode. But I think I've seen people struggle from leadership perspective of letting go of that control and not being the one maybe running that table every day. And that's what I look for now. I look for someone who understands that it is that network that matters. It is your ability to communicate, your ability to understand enough about other people's disciplines to be dangerous usually, right? But be able to ask good questions and be able to see how things fit together.
I love that so much. And
great.
Like understanding their disciplines or their different personalities, what makes them tick, what makes them work. That's a super power on the emotional intelligence scale. So yay for you on that. When you think about the times the team has gone through kind of challenging situations, or even, we had COVID, that was definitely a challenging situation, or decisions have been made in the company, or big changes have happened within your organization. How do you as a leader motivate your team in kind of helping just lift them?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of examples of that. Like, you gave great ones there. I think for us, we've shrunk a lot as an organization over the last 10 years and had a lot of assets come in and out of the portfolio and a lot of change. And I think about it constantly, is like, how do you keep everyone engaged? And And I think for me, the biggest thing that I've seen success in is just helping people really understand the business holistically. So helping people understand, the hard bits of finance and how it works and how our bottom line works, and then helping people tie what they do on an everyday basis all the way through to the bottom line, so that they can see that the things that they're doing, the decisions they're making, how it actually impacts the company. That's always been a really big one, I would say. And then just really helping also people understand the why of decisions. That's probably the one that I understood the least when I first started out. Was like, well, because in the command and control structure I kind of grew up in, not a lot of people explained the why to you. It was more of a do this, do that, not here's why I'm having you do this. And I think people really appreciate that, understanding where they fit in and why you're asking me to do this. And if you appeal to logic and reasoning, I'm an engineer, so I overuse that skill sometimes, but I think people really want that connection, and when they have it, it really helps with the motivation. And I think the last thing I would say is just always focused on that team environment. How are we doing as a group? How's the overall temperature? Is anyone struggling? Does anyone need help? Just really trying to keep an eye on that as well as you go through things, because when you get busy and there's times of crisis, that's when, some people need a little more hand up and help out. And sometimes it's easy to drive past that.
Yeah. Yes.
I can appreciate the understanding the finance piece. I got my MBA in 2013, and I will tell you the finance classes were the most difficult for me. I just, do we really have to talk about EBITDA? Really? I mean, can we not talk about EBITDA? That'd be great. And it also made it significantly more impactful for me as a team player to understand what's happening with the money. It seems obvious, and yet many of us, certainly not me, that wasn't a part of the world that I came from.
Yeah. I love how you said, the through line of how everyone kind of fits into the why of the business. I think that's such a powerful culture maker, is this idea of wherever I'm sitting, whatever business unit I'm sitting in, how do I fit into this, and what's my part of the story? And when that's super clear for all these different business units, you don't have the silos as much. You feel connection with other teams, and you can do amazing things and solve incredible challenges.
I think the other thing our team has realized is that when you speak in the language of the executive team and you help them understand your business better, and that they have full confidence that you've got your business handled, then good things happen to you, right? The next thing, that next opportunity, when you're pitching it, when people have full confidence in your base business, that's when you get the opportunity to do cool and fun things on top.
Yeah, totally agree.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of cool and fun things, what are you seeing for the future? You kind of look in your crystal ball, Kim, and tell us what's coming down the pipeline, what you think might change.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, thank you. What might change the way you do business, and how you guys are going to react to it? What do you see in 5 years?
It is an incredible time right now. I would say even just the last number of weeks have been pretty wild ride. And so I think, for me as a Canadian, having been in this industry for as long as I have, I think this is the time that we can't waste. And we've kind of, my friends, we've come up with this hashtag don't waste a crisis, Canada. My gosh.
Wow.
We've got to come to the table here and figure out ways to be able to move energy across our own country and supply our own country, figure out more ways to get products to Tidewater. We have to find a way to have a customer other than the US. And gosh, that's been true for so long, many, many decades, but never has there been more impetus than now to maybe actually get something done. We've got, we're on the precipice of probably some government change, which might also help with that. We've got pressure from the US as well to get our house in order and to come to the table with wider geopolitical plans as well. And so I think it's an incredible time for our industry. And, LNG Canada is about to start up this year, which is our first export capability off the West Coast. There's a lot of momentum there. and you think a lot of good things could happen. But as I've seen in the last 25 years of my career, you just can't waste this time. You can't waste this time where everyone's motivated and has this global understanding and a little bit macro view of things, because it's easy for normalcy to creep in and thoughts to fade and, you know, not tempers to unflare a little bit. It's just easy for us to be who we are, human beings, and just be a little bit agnostic to change once a little bit of time has passed, right? And so I think
Yeah.
it's a big time for us.
I love that phrase that you said, not wasting a crisis.
Yeah.
There's something really powerful in that. Bruce and I love the idea of that uncertainty, the ambiguity, the idea that you've got this, big pile of something that just got thrown into the mix, and now you have to make something out of it. And you're so right when you say that. I think pressure builds diamonds, and we know that having the view of the opportunity as opposed to what we're losing is a really powerful leadership position to have. That's why you're a trailblazer. We love that. We love that. And kind of moving towards thinking about your leadership position and where you are. One of the things that we like to ask our leaders is, what is the one piece of advice that you received from someone along your journey that is still resonating for you, that is still kind of something you work and live by? And how did it come to pass that person gave it to you?
Oh, this is an incredible story. And so actually involves my CEO and me. And so back in the day, so I've worked for or near our current CEO, Brendan McCracken, for almost the entire 25 years. When I started as a summer student in northern heavy oil in Saskatchewan, I got invited to go down to the Weyburn Oil Show for a couple of days. And I never forget, I met him immediately when I got to Weyburn. He took me on a tour of the Weyburn oil field, which was the first CO2 flood that existed. And so it was really cool. And I remember meeting him that time. And we've kind of followed each other through the company ever since. And so, probably 10 years ago, when I first became a leader at the company, I was really petitioning hard for a particular position. And it was not the position that I got. And I remember being really upset and really entitled, and went into his office and was quite vocal about how upset I was about it. And it might have been a few tears, which I regretted immediately, but it is what it is. And so I'll never forget his advice. And I still tell people this all the time. He's like, Kim, hey, listen, I know you're upset. He's like, but it's the plate of spaghetti that's been put in front of you. So what you have to do is eat that plate of spaghetti, because sometimes it stinks and sometimes it's great. He's like, but the whole point is eating it, and how you eat it is what really matters. He's like, we're watching how you eat it more than we are like what you're eating. And I was like, oh, I never really thought of it that way, right? This is a challenge of leadership. Again, not about the particular asset that you're in charge of and how unsexy it is. It's more about what you do with it and how you go about it. And so that has stuck with me ever since. And I find myself repeating it all the time. So very sage wisdom.
I love that. I love that so much. And I will tell you, like, immediately what it made me think of, and you're going to laugh at this, is when I was growing up, I did theater. And I ended up going to a high school where my father was my theater teacher. And when he cast people in shows, you didn't get the part that you wanted all the time. He cast you in that role because he knew you had the capacity to do it. And, you could grumble about it. It's not what I wanted, except he knew you had the skills and no one else had the skills for that particular role. And that's what it makes me think of, is this idea that they saw in you something they really needed for that particular role, and they needed to see you work through that. So I love that so much.
How long were you in that role, Kim? And what did it transition into? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I ended up in that role only for a couple of years. But I think the needed skill set there was my background and experience working in Southern Alberta. And it was something that at the time I was really, I had kind of come from my past, and I felt like I was going backwards a little bit by doing that. And all the cool kids worked up north, and so I wanted to be part of that gang. And so, but gosh, when I look back, the projects we got to work on, the things we got to do. I mean, most people don't know this, but at the time we were looking at drilling wells in the basement of this building before it was built to try and power the building. We
Oh
got
my
to do
God.
really cool stuff, right? And it never
Yes.
ended up happening, but we ended up like looking at a lot of really neat things, working with the Calgary Police Service, drilling wells on their gun range before they put the gun range in place, like things like that that could be done as co-development, and it was really cool, right? And I would have missed out on all of that if I'd been working in the north, just grinding away, in the bush, right? So it was
Yes.
really good learning.
Yeah, that's that hindsight. Look what I got. Right?
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to right now? What is Kim Williams looking forward to? What are you inspired by? What are you looking forward to? Either one or both. What's making you happy?
I think there's a few things that stick out. We got a new puppy this weekend, and so that has been super incredible, and we love him a lot, and he's already kind of working his way into the family. So going home every night to see him because he's teeny tiny right now, and I'm sure he'll be monstrous eventually. But so that's pretty cool. His name is Ernie, and he's a black lab. Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
Yeah. But other than that, on the work side of things, we just did a really major acquisition in Canada here that we just closed on January 31st. And it was pretty incredible. We signed on November 14th and closed on the 31st. It was about 78 days. You can imagine we needed a federal approval to get that deal closed, which was really tricky during the timing. I'll never forget, the day that Chrystia Freeland resigned and the entire government went into chaos was the day we were supposed to be with the minister. And so we managed to get through that. So for me, it's about like getting to the other side of that deal and really having that feel like Ovintiv. That's the biggest one for me, because we go out to the site and see how things are going. But like the day that actually feels like part of Ovintiv is something I'm really looking forward to. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I love both.
Kim Williams.
Yes.
Vice President and General Manager
of Operations.
Canadian Operations.
Yes.
It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you for coming on with us.
You guys are like the two best hype people I've ever met. You make everything feel so great. So thank you for the time today.
It's our pleasure.
See you soon.